Dan, do they have an operational problem or a reputational issue? And how easy is it going to be to fix?
I mean, I think it's a big step forward that we saw from the earnings call in terms of Musk recommitting to Tesla. And I think these interviews that we saw yesterday, it's another huge step forward because to me, you're talking about with NVIDIA, two of the biggest disruptive technology players in the world in terms of autonomous and optimus. So I don't, look, I view it, is there some brand damage? We've said there is. But I don't view it as something that it really changes the game going forward. And I think now demand starts to rebound in Europe, demand starts to rebound in China, and Musk is Tesla, Tesla is Musk. Tesla got back its biggest asset, doubling down here.
So Dan, does that mean when Elon Musk said yesterday as to how he would turn around the company, and he said, oh, it's already turned around, that you would agree with that?
I would. I mean, look, we've talked about on the show, I mean, it was a dark period when he was a Doge. We went through that. He ultimately was a fork in the road. Clock struck midnight. He picked Tesla. And now I believe that path to 2 trillion market cap is on the table because of autonomous and robotics. And I just believe now you'll still have some chop in terms of demand in near term. But I think overall, this is going to be a golden era for Tesla.
Dan, there'd also been this bull case after the Trump election, why you saw Tesla surge so much. And that bull case went something along the lines of easier regulation for Tesla, that he had the ear of President Trump. If we are seeing Elon Musk starting to pull back, not spending as much in DC, not as present with Doge, does some of that need to be priced out as well then?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I mean, obviously, Doge took on a life of its own. I think Musk recognized that in terms of some of the brand damages, which is ultimately why he had to leave Trump White House. But in terms, I do believe you are going to have less regulation. I think the pathway to autonomous is going to be there on level 4, not just for Tesla, but for Waymo and others. But I don't think it's priced in. I do not believe the market is fully pricing in the opportunity in terms of autonomous and robotics for Tesla. And I think what we saw from Musk, that's a different Musk. That's a committed Musk. Look, leaders lead. And that's what Musk is doing.
The issue down at play then, if you believe the long-term valuation comes down to autonomous, most people do. They agree with you. You've got to understand whether it's a regulation issue or a tech issue. And if you look at Waymo, Dan, it doesn't look like a regulation issue for the likes of Waymo. Waymo's now doing 250,000 paid rides a week. A few years ago, that number was 10K. Dan, how much of a challenge is coming from Waymo?
Look, I mean, Waymo are $230,000 cars, and they're essentially in 4 cities. I mean, obviously, they'll expand. But I believe Tesla is going to go past Waymo 100 miles an hour in the left lane in the next year. In other words, I believe Tesla, from a market share perspective, given scale and scope and what they could do across the U.S., I think Waymo will be a rounding error relative to what Tesla could do on autonomous. Clearly, Waymo's had the leader. But I don't view that as something that's static. I think Tesla has a huge opportunity ahead of it.
Without a doubt, that can change, Dan. But what are you looking at right now that's giving you that confidence? It's clearly not blind hope, at least it shouldn't be. What gives you that confidence in the moment? What do you see?
I mean, what I see is Austin's going to take off in June. I think you're going to have basically 15 to 20 cities in the next 6 to 9 months. And the scale, I mean, we're talking about a few 100,000 robotaxis into next year, and ultimately something that's going to approach in the millions. And I think when you look again to level 4 and you look at where they're heading, I think that's the new era of growth for Tesla. And that's why it was so important for Musk to sort of, make that 180, refocus on Tesla. And that's what he's done. And I think if I told you a month ago that we'd be talking about this, it would be a dream scenario. And I think that's what the stock's reflecting too, from those dark days that we saw, starting in the early parts of the Trump administration from Musk.